All right, so today we are going to start actually using these trig functions to solve for missing sides. So we've solved for missing sides of right triangles using Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Today we're going to use your trig function. So you will need a calculator. I would highly recommend that if you don't have Desmos downloaded to download Desmos. I highly recommend it. I'm going to show you how to use this today. There's a couple of different functions that we have to use on here. So today, our goal by the end of this is that you will be able to solve for a missing side of a right triangle using sine, cosine, and tangent. So there are 4 steps that I would say that you need to use in order to solve for a side. So to solve for a side, and this is like using SOHCAHTOA. This is what I would do. Number 1, first thing you're going to do is you are going to put your pencil on the angle measure given. So put your pencil on that angle measure. They're always going to give you an angle measure. If you're solving for a side, they're going to give you the angle. Put your pencil on that angle. After you have your pencil on that angle, then this is kind of the hard part, is you have to figure out what trig function, sine, cosine, or tangent, so what trig function do you have to use? So it's not going to be like, you know what, today I want to use tangent. It doesn't really work that way. There's a specific trig function that you have to use depending on what you're given. After you've figured out which trig function you have to use, then you are going to set up that trig ratio. And again, I'm not going to throw you to the wolves here. I definitely will help you out. And then after you've set up your trig ratio, then you are going to cross multiply like we did back when we did those proportions with similar figures. So these are the 4 steps that you need to use. If I were you, I would screenshot this. This is when you are solving for a side using SOHCAHTOA. You're going to hear that a lot again today, but I would definitely make sure you have this written down. This is going to be a big lifesaver, I personally think, throughout all this. So pencil on the angle, figure out which trig function, sine, cosine, or tangent, set up the actual trig ratio using the angle and the sides, and then cross multiply. And cross multiplying is where you're going to need your calculator. So here are a couple of examples. We're going to walk through a decent amount of them. If you start to catch on, you can fast forward. I will say that everything that I am writing down is the exact work that I need to see from you on your quiz this Thursday. So I do need to see all of this work in order to help you out because you have a test next Tuesday. So first thing that it says right here in the directions is to make sure that your calculator is in degree mode. So if you are using Desmos, Desmos does not start your calculator in degree mode. You have to come up here to this little drop down. Oh, actually that's a lie. You come up here to this little wrench. Click on the wrench and then this pops up. And what you see right here is radians and degrees. So you need to make sure you click degrees. If you leave it on radians, everything is going to be wrong. So you need to make sure that degrees is highlighted. And you're going to hear me say that a lot. I will definitely remind you on test and quiz days to make sure your calculator's on degree mode, because the last thing you want is to go through your entire quiz or test and be in the wrong mode, because you can measure angles in 2 different things. You can measure angles in degrees and you can measure angles in radians, which you'll get to in a trigonometry course. So I changed it, and I think once you change it, it stays in that mode. So once I change it to degree, it should stay there. So now I am going to follow my steps. Step 1 says put your pencil on the given angle. So this angle is given to me. Now I need to figure out, am I going to use sine, cosine, or tangent? So what that means though is that from the angle, what sides am I given? So across from the 90-degree angle, this is known as your hypotenuse. So I'm definitely using one with the hypotenuse. I'm not going to be using tangent because that doesn't have a hypotenuse. So from the 28, what is x? Is x the adjacent leg or the opposite leg? From the 28, x is the opposite leg. So I have O and H. O and H means that I'm going to use sine. So that's my red flag that I'm using sine. And I'm keeping my pencil on that angle. So I figured out, I did step 1, I put my pencil there. Step 2, I figured out that I'm going to have to use sine. Step 3 is to now actually set up that sine trig ratio. So remember, you always do the trig ratio of, or you do the sine, the cosine, or the tangent of the angle. So I'm going to do sine of the angle equals, and sine is opposite O over H, opposite over hypotenuse, x over 19. Put that over 1. So I set up my fractions here, and now I'm going to cross multiply, do the butterfly thing. X times 1 is x equals, now this is where you need Desmos. You're going to type this in as, let's see here, we've got 19 times, and then sine is going to be under this function right here. Press function. There's sine. And then it's sine of 28. And you get 8.9. You're going to get some really junky decimals. I'm well aware of that. You're going to have to round again. We had junky decimals before. So I get 8.9. And that answer makes sense because the hypotenuse is still the longest side. And then you're done. Let's take a look at another one. So we have, again, step 1, put my pen on the angle. From there, I do not have anything labeled or listed for the hypotenuse. So that actually is kind of my red flag that I'm going to use tangent because nothing's on the hypotenuse. From here, x is opposite, 32 is adjacent. So opposite and adjacent means that I'm going to use tangent. So I'm going to write my trig ratio now. Tangent of the angle equals, from that angle, tangent is O over A, x over 32. So by labeling my sides, I'm kind of helping myself out too. Put the tangent of 32 over 1, cross multiply, x times 1 is x, and then I need to, in my calculator, do the 32, so I'm going to x out of there, do the 32 first, don't put that first, 32 times, and then I go to functions, tan 41, and I get 27.8. And there's that answer. So the hardest part is really, I personally think, figuring out, are you using sine, cosine, and or tangent? And you're going to get pretty familiar with that hopefully this week. So again, for number 6, same setup here. Put my pencil on the angle. Across from the 90 degrees, this is the hypotenuse. This side right here, in accordance to the angle, it's the adjacent leg because it's attached to it. A stands for adjacent, which also means attached. A for attached. So A and H means that I'm using cosine. So I'm going to say cosine of the angle equals adjacent over hypotenuse, x over 26. And then put a 1 underneath, cross multiply, x times 1 is x equals, and now I have to take 26 times the cosine of 21. 26 times function cosine 21. And I get 24.3. So if you know here, I'm doing the same thing every single time. I'm listing the angles, I'm labeling and stuff. Let's take a look at number 8 here. This one's a little bit different. I do want to show you a couple that look a little different. So, but again, step 1, pencil on the angle. Then figure out which trig function. So across from the 90-degree angle, this is my hypotenuse. From the angle, the 15 is across from it, so this is opposite. Adjacent means it's attached to, opposite means across from. So O and H O and H means that I'm using sine. So I do sine of the angle equals O over H, 15 over X. Now this one's a little different. If you look here, our X's were all in the numerator of your fractions. Now the X is in the denominator. Again, though, we're going to cross multiply. So here we cross multiply, and I have X times the sine of 33 equals 15. So I have one extra step here. Once I do the multiply, I need to get rid of the sine of 33. I need to bring it to the other side. And since this is being multiplied, I'm going to divide both sides by the sine of 33. So X is going to equal whatever 15 divided by function sine of 33. You get 27.5. I'm going to show you a shortcut here on the next one. If you look, and I'll explain it right here. So again, on this one, put your pencil on the angle. Across from the 90-degree angle, this is the hypotenuse. For the angle, this 36 is attached to it, so this is the adjacent. A and H means I'm going to use cosine. So I do cosine of the angle equals A over H, 36 over X. So again, I have the X in the denominator. When your X is in the bottom, this is kind of a little shortcut way instead of having to do all this cross multiplying and whatever. When your X is in the denominator, you're going to end up having to divide. So if your X is in the denominator, what you can do is take these two right here and they can flip-flop spots. So then you're going to have X equals whatever 36 divided by the cosine of 43 is. So you can just take 36, and that's kind of what we did here. We ended up that's really what we did do here. So once we cross multiplied and everything, we took the 15 and divided by the sine of 33. And we can do that here. We're going to take the 36 and divide by the cosine of 43. I can't do that in my head, so let's see what this is. 36 divided by function cosine 43. And you get 49.2. Let's take a look at one more. And then I'm going to send you on your way here. So if you take a look at number 10. Here's my angle, 25. Actually, there's nothing on the hypotenuse, so that's kind of your red flag. You're going to use tangent. So this is opposite. This is adjacent. So you do tan of your angle equals opposite over adjacent. So 25 over X. See how the X is in the denominator? So I'm going to have these two flip-flop spots. And X is going to equal 25 divided by the tangent of 72. So now that's all I plug into my calculator. And you should get more familiar with these. And this is probably the most important thing that we're going to be really kind of going over with you guys this year. This will carry over into other classes. Tan 72. And you get 8.1. So all of this work I'm showing, I need to see on these so I can help out if you're getting them wrong. Let's just take a look at one more for fun. So here's your angle, pencil on the angle. Across from the 90-degree angle, this is your hypotenuse. This is attached to it, so that's adjacent. A and H means I'm going to use cosine. So cosine of the angle equals A over H, X over 11. So now this one has the X on top. So if the X is on top, I'm not flip-flopping spots with anything. It's only when the X is on the bottom. So this one I actually can cross multiply. X times 1 is X, and then I actually do multiply the 11 and the cosine of 64. So I take 11 times function cosine 64, and I get 4.8. So hopefully that makes sense. Today you will have a decent amount of these to practice. And tomorrow we're going to be using these trig functions again to solve for sides. So I might have a small video tomorrow if I have some questions pop up, but my plan was not to do another one. So I'll just keep an eye on you guys. Reach out if you have questions.